Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is Ms. Diana Winkler. She is a singer, songwriter, speaker, and abuse advocate. She served as a missionary planting churches for 13 years while enduring abuse that was enabled by the church. 10 years ago, she started her ministry, DSW Ministries. She uses her music and mentoring to help survivors in the church heal from domestic violence, abuse, and trauma. Diana is a host of the Wounds of the Faithful podcast and is a certified facilitator for Mending the Soul small groups. Diana is passionate about helping victims discover that not only can they survive, but they can be victorious. That's a beautiful bio, Diana. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me onto the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so I think what would be helpful to our listeners, because my listeners are generally women who are survivors, and what we want to do in the show is for a chance for them to hear stories from other survivors, whatever you feel comfortable sharing about your story, and then also how you healed, how you recovered, what that journey was like. So maybe let's just start with the story, whatever you're willing to share, and that'd be great.
Sure, I'm always honored to share my story. I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version because
Awesome.
it's always hard to, put it all that time into a short, summary, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
So one of the darkest times of my life was during my 13-year marriage to my ex-husband. Now, we met at church after I sang a solo in the church. And there were definitely some red flags and warning signs when we dated, but I brushed them off as they were normal. I didn't know any better. We got married during Bible college my senior year. And he came from a good family, so it was a big shock when the marriage became abusive almost immediately after the wedding. And we were in full-time ministry after college, planting churches across the country. But he was a different person in church than he was at home. And it was like living with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. At the time, I didn't know what a narcissist was. I didn't know what gaslighting was. I didn't even realize that I was being abused. I thought at that time, abuse is hitting or sexual assault. I later learned, of course, the common denominator is control and power. Mm-hmm. So at home, he was verbally abusive, disrespectful, controlling, manipulative, proud, and angry. He would have these mood swings every day, sometimes humiliating me in public. And I never knew what would set off his rage. It was usually over petty things. And he would say that I was the one that made him act this way. The language he used towards me would make a sailor blush. And I was told to shut up and submit whenever I would question his bad decisions. I walked on eggshells to avoid getting him upset. Now, he once tried to commit suicide right in front of me because he couldn't have another piece of pie. Make no mistake about it, that was abusive.
Right.
He would accuse me of having affairs with everyone from the aerobics instructor to the choir director. I was tracked whenever I left the house. Yeah, we had a lack of emotional and physical intimacy in our relationship. And he would use sex as a weapon against me. We never had any children together for a couple reasons. One, you actually have to have a sex life to have a baby. And two, I eventually realized I did not want to raise children with this man. I was kept in the dark about our family finances, even when we were on the verge of bankruptcy. He was never supportive of my music ministry either. He would keep me from recording a music album or those kind of things. I was really good at putting on a Christian face at church and public. Being a ministry wife was, you had to look the part on the outside. You had to show everybody that you had it all together. But in reality, I was miserable inside. I was a dutiful wife for the first 7 years, trying to make lemonade out of lemons. But things would get worse and worse. Now, only my closest friends knew what I was going through. And many people have asked me why I didn't leave him sooner. Well, the legalistic church denomination that I came from, they would not allow divorce for any reason. Divorced people are treated like outcasts. They're not allowed to fully serve in the church. So over the years, I dragged my husband to 3 different counselors in order to get some help. The pastors would tell me that if I would only submit to my husband, then we wouldn't have any marriage problems. Mm-hmm. Any counselor that had any real solutions, he would fold his arms and not participate in the sessions. Wouldn't do the homework. So I felt definitely trapped and alone and bitter. And I wanted to take my marriage vows seriously, but I had pretty much given up about the 8th year of our marriage. We were barely roommates, much less marriage partners. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I became resentful and bitter with him, the church, and with God. I stopped praying because I didn't think God was listening. Mm-hmm. And I stopped doing my personal Bible reading as well. Now, I continued to wear my mask and serve in the church on the outside, but inside I was dying more and more each day. And I sank into a deep depression because I felt that no one was going to help me out of this prison. Now, our 13th anniversary came, and it was a disaster. This was my turning point. The next day, I woke up so depressed, and I thought that I could not live another year like this. And one of my friends said something to me that I'll never forget. I called her up that morning crying about what happened the night before. And she said, Diane, I'm tired of you calling me and complaining about this abusive husband that you have. Tough love there. I had to get out of that house. And she said, God isn't going to stop loving you because you leave your abusive husband. He's going to love you no matter what.
Now, were you aware at this time that it was abuse?
Well, she just told me that
it was the first time you thought of it.
That was the first time that the light bulb came on. It was like somebody hit me with a sack of bricks.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, you're right. So this is wrong. And you're right also that God isn't going to stop loving me.
Right.
And so that day I cried out to God and I said, I'm willing to take whatever consequences that are going to come as a result of leaving my husband. I had to get out before it destroyed me, because I knew that I was going to lose everything. And I knew that he would not let me leave. So I had 3 of my friends that offered to help me secretly escape when my husband went out of town for 2 weeks. And I was so terrified that he would find out. I didn't sleep for months. And it was terrifying because I lost my job 2 weeks before his trip and before my departure.
Ooh.
And I thought, I almost lost hope of getting out of there. I just panicked. But my best friend said that I could come and live with her and her family until I got out on my feet, because she said if I didn't leave now, I would not get another chance for a long time. So I left everything behind, including my 2 dogs. And when he found out that I had left, all of a sudden he wanted counseling. I was against it because I pretty much had it at that point. But our pastor wanted us to come to counseling. And my husband was upset that I left, and he apologized to me. He had the crocodile tears in the counseling session. But when we talked about the issues in our marriage, it was the same song and dance. Same excuses, the same abusive manipulation. And it was all about me submitting. Now I told him that I forgive him for what he did to me. But I was going to go through with the divorce. So that was the day that I started the journey towards healing in my new life. And I'm not going to say that the next 2 years were very, very hard. They were. And I did lose pretty much everything. My friends chose sides, except the 3 that I mentioned. I was ostracized from my church. Mm-hmm. I went through a bankruptcy, and I was unemployed for 8 months. And I started dating again, but I met too many men just like my ex-husband. Let me tell you, you need to stay away from those dating apps for sure. They are full of predatory people. You know, I held on to the promise that God had a plan for my life. I found a new church that accepted me as I was. I started praying again and reading my Bible again. Because when I left my abuser, I thought that I was going to receive the wrath of God on me for leaving. And it surprised me that I felt the opposite. I felt nothing except God's love and tenderness. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a Bible verse for that, but I felt God's love and mercy, and hey, I've got a future for you. It's not over. Now, 2 years after my divorce, the Lord sent me a godly, loving husband, Brian, and he's the greatest gift in my life.
How did you meet him?
We actually met on a dating website, a Christian dating website.
You just said stay away from them. I met my husband that way too, though.
I had gotten off of the dating websites, and then he sent me what they call a wink. And that's, I guess an email saying somebody's interested in talking to you. And I looked at his profile and I thought, oh, wow, we have a lot in common. We have the same interests, and he seems like just a regular guy. And so I went ahead and started chatting with him and, figured it was going to be the same as all the other guys I dated, but we had our first date. We saw a movie around Thanksgiving, and then, we dated for about 6 months. And I was sick with the flu one day. Mm-hmm. And I just was going to crawl into bed and die. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And he calls me up and he says, so what are you doing? And I said, oh, came home from work with the flu, and I'm just going to go crawl into bed. And he's like, well, what are you going to have for dinner? I said, I don't have energy to make dinner. So he said, well, I already had my flu shot, so I'm going to go and go to the pharmacy, get you some medicine. I'm going to get some Kleenex and some soup, and I'm going to come over and make you some dinner and do the dishes and, cheer you up. And we sat on the couch watching a sci-fi movie, which was one of my favorites. And he said I was beautiful. I had like snot coming down my nose. I had no makeup on, and I'm like, I look terrible. I thought, who does this? Who goes on a date with a sick girl and says she's beautiful and that I need to keep this one? So
yes.
We were married in March the following year, and we've been married 12 years.
Wow. That is quite the story.
Yeah, that's how we met. And I also recorded my first solo vocal album after I left my abuser. And my husband, Brian, he's a musician too. And so we felt can't talk either today. We felt led of God to use our music to promote awareness of domestic violence and abuse. Brian is also a survivor with his own story.
Mm-hmm.
God can turn the bad into good by using us to help others going through the same trauma. We started writing new songs based on our experiences as well as other people's stories. We have concerts and fundraisers, and, we're out there to give hope and empowerment for victims. I am in the process of recording a new album. It's like a concept album of healing with some more original songs and also some cover songs. This should be released next year. And so you did mention the beginning that I started DSW Ministries for survivors. And yeah, we started that together because I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. The doors kept closing in the churches that we were at to start a ministry for abuse survivors until we joined the church that we're at now. I found out about Mending the Soul groups. My pastor's wife invited me to attend a group, and because she found that I was a survivor and she found that I wanted to help other survivors. So I don't know if you want me to go into what Mending the Soul is at this point, or you want me to fill some more.
Tell me the name of the group again.
It's called Mending the Soul.
Oh, Mending the Soul. Okay. I see it on your banner too.
Yeah.
So our YouTubers will be able to see her banner. Our podcast guests won't, but she's got a great banner that says DSW Ministries, Diana Winkler, dswministries.org, singer, songwriter, public speaker, voice teacher. Oh, I love that. Trained facilitator for Mending the Soul. Yeah, like if you in a nutshell could tell us what Mending the Soul is, that would be great.
Yeah, so it's a healing group for survivors designed by a trauma counselor and a theology and ethics professor here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I was, healed from my abuse at this stage in my life, but my facilitators in my group showed me that there were some areas of my past that I had not dealt with and needed some healing. Mm-hmm. When I completed the program, which is about 16 weeks, give or take, I was so impressed with the ministry. I signed up to be a facilitator, and I have not found anything like it anywhere. It is incredible. We talk about all different kinds of abuse and trauma, things that I didn't even know were abuse and trauma. Mm-hmm. And it's open to men and women. Mm-hmm. Now, originally, I was teaching these groups at my church, but then of course the pandemic showed up and we switched to Zoom, of course. And so now I teach them with my co-facilitator, Kelly. And it's a place where you can tell your story, be believed and heard and supported. You can process what you have gone through. Many of the ladies in my group have never told anybody their story. They were afraid. But the goal of the group is to create a safe place for you to tell your story and to process this abuse and trauma that you've gone through. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be cured at the end of the 16 weeks. I don't think we're going to be cured this side of heaven. Probably in the next life, in heaven with the Lord, we may be healed. But it's open to everyone. And Mending the Soul is all over the world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Is there a training program online or a book or?
Yes, the curriculum is 2 books. There's the workbook and the textbook. There are also different curriculums for, like we have a teen curriculum. We have one for those in Africa. We have one for Native Americans. We have one in Spanish. We have one for children called vulnerable people.
Okay.
That's for young children who are, they're high risk for being abused. And so there's all different kinds of curriculums based on what your needs are. We even have one for sex trafficked victims called Princess Lost.
Princess Lost.
I've been trained in that curriculum as well. So yes, it's all over the world. In fact, the founder, Stephen Tracy, he takes a group of people, a team of facilitators, and goes to horrible places like the Congo that have trauma with a capital T. They've got rape. I mean, it's the rape capital of the world. They have.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. They have, Ebola. They have poverty. They have the children, the slaves that are working the cobalt mines over there. They don't have any therapists. They don't have doctors in many of these villages. They have a culture that blames the victim for being raped or assaulted or tortured.
Isn't that true for most cultures though?
Yeah, this is taking it up a notch. They will disown you.
Yeah.
They will shun you. And so Stephen Tracy and his wife, they take teams in dangerous parts of the world like the Congo and other places and trains the community members, like the mayors, the churches, anybody that has a leadership position, train them to, 1, deal with their own trauma, and 2, learn how to put on these healing groups for their community and change what the cultural ramifications are for abuse. What does the Bible say about how you should treat a woman? What does the Bible say about
Honor,
abuse?
respect.
How does God feel about you as a person? You are a child of God. You are worthy of respect and love. And you should not be treated like this. And so they deal with the cultural problems, because if you don't deal with that first, then it's just going to continue. And it has brought so much healing. And Stephen Tracy was on my podcast as a guest, and he's got some stories that you would not believe of the transformation of these people that had been through multiple traumas and horrible abuses, and they go on to change their communities. I mean, you can't even recognize, you cannot even recognize some of the ladies that had gone through one of these groups. And now they are like they're the endorsement for the Lord and for healing and the power of God, the power of love. So I hope that answers that for you.
That is just so moving, Diana. I'm so happy that you're talking about that program at Mending the Soul. I had not even heard of it. I feel like I've heard about the book maybe, but I'm not positive. It's crazy powerful.
It is. And I'm very passionate about it. And we talk about there are many different ways of healing, as you already know. For me, myself was music, as I spoke about before, but there's, some people heal with, animal therapy or nature, being out in nature. Some people need a good doctor, a good therapist. Some folks need medical care, medication. Not everybody likes group therapy or talk therapy. And so I definitely recognize that, and trying my podcast to have a bunch of guests on that offer different ways of healing, different perspectives, different avenues of healing. And so, that was one of the reasons why I started the podcast, was because I had the ladies in my group during the lockdown. They were in the lockdown during the pandemic with their abusers. And the only time they had to themselves was the 2 hours with me for their Mending the Soul group. And they needed more after I think we went 18 weeks in 2020. They needed more resources, more support. And so it's like, well, hey, I can start a podcast, right? I like to talk. I have something to say, and I got the equipment here.
Yeah. I'm going to put in our notes too about your podcast, because we have a similar mission. So
yes.
The more of us, the better, for sure. There's lots of work to be done. Where can people find your music?
You can find everything you need on my website, dswministries.org. You can listen to my music. I have a store. You can see my links for my podcast. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel as well. My handle for all of those is DSW Ministries. On my website, you can see about Mending the Soul group. I can connect you with a group in your area or on Zoom. I have mentoring for those that are trying to get out of an abusive situation or transitioning. What in the world do I do after I get out? So everything you need, you can find on my website.
That's wonderful.
You want to email me, you can email me at Diana at dswministries.org is my email if you just want to chat or just want to talk.
Oh, that's wonderful for sure. Any books inspire your journey that you'd recommend? I know music
so many
is your
books.
Thing.
Music is my thing, and people keep telling me I need to write a book, but
yes, I think so too.
It may be down the pike.
Your two most favorite books that have helped your healing journey?
Definitely Mending the Soul, hands down, is the best thing out there. There are so many books that are very helpful. I think the other one, and this may sound strange, but it's called, my brain is fried. Gavin de Becker is the author.
Say the author again.
Gavin de Becker.
My
head just drew a blank. Let me
take your time.
Google it. You're editing, right?
Maybe not. We're a low budget affair, but it's all good because we're human, and I have a fried brain quite frequently.
This is like my favorite book, and The Gift of Fear.
Gift of Fear.
Gift of Fear, and it talks about that we don't listen to our instincts. We don't listen to that spidey sense. And it has all these examples being safe. And when there is danger present, that there are signs that danger is present or the situation is not good, but we put them aside. We don't listen to them. And then something really horrible happens later. So the book goes through a bunch of scenarios and examples and shows us we can trust our intuition, and that your hair's raising up on your arm because okay, he's asking if he can take my groceries up the stairs and put them inside my apartment, but I already told him no. And, I just want to be polite. I don't want to be mean or don't want to feel ungrateful, but
yeah,
those are the kind of things that he talks about in the book. You don't have to be polite all the time. If you've already said right. No, you've already established your boundaries and you feel something off here, then act on that. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. That gift of fear was put in you for a reason. Don't be afraid to act on that. So that's really changed my life, including a few other books that we could probably both list.
Well, what's really, talk about a God moment. I had another podcast interview this morning, and the guest has written a book about intuition and all the different types, and it's amazing. I've already forgotten the name of her book, but I'll add it to your show notes as well. So when you see your episode air, it'll be part of that too, because it's, God wants our listeners to really work on their intuition. I'm positive about that, because I think our intuition is God. Actually, that's what my belief is, that our voice of knowing is a higher power trying to tell us, like, no, this isn't what I want for you. Alert. And of course, our free will or our stubborn nature is like, oh, I'm overreacting, or, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. No, it's not fine. Honor that voice. So, and I'm also listening to a book right now. It's not a spiritual book at all. There's a lot of cussing and stuff in it. But a famous actress, Gabrielle Union, I thought it was just going to be a funny book. And she actually talks about a sexual assault where she did not listen to her intuition twice and ended up assaulted. So I was like, wow. So the intuition theme is strong.
And we're not here to victim blame anybody. The blame is always on the attacker.
Yeah.
Even if you...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We don't want to say that we're victim blaming in any sense of the word, but we do want to give you tools to help you move forward.
Yeah, and we all are guilty of not listening to our intuition, because it's like you said, like we are raised, especially as women, to be people pleasers and to be nice. So I think we're all have gotten ourselves into scrapes from not listening. So I love that you said no victim blaming. Yeah, that's not therapeutic.
No.
And doesn't help with healing. So yes. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to add? Anything else inspirational or hopeful to offer our listeners as we wrap up?
I always say that if you're in an abusive situation, that God does love you. You are a created child of God, man or woman, and that you deserve respect and honor. And to reach out for help. We will help you. If not me, if not Karen, then there are lots of other resources online. But I want to leave you with Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, to give you a hope and a future. So claim those for yourself.
Amen. Thank you so much, Diana.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.